that was really the origin for starting my first business, which I started when I was 23 here in Cape Town. It was called 33 South Boutique Backpackers. And it was a little 7-bedroom student home and observatory, which we converted into a backpackers. 33 South was the first business I started, and it was really all about travel. And I think that sowed the seed for the next few years for me.
Hello and welcome to the Real Good podcast by Neighborgood, a podcast designed for the next generation of property entrepreneurs and investors, where our guests share with us their strategies, their stories, and their tactics on all things entrepreneurial and property investment related. My name is Murray Clark, and I'm your host, and today we have with us an extra special guest, Kim Whitaker, who is one of the best female founders that I know. She was way before her time when she founded Once, a hospitality operation which did incredible things going up Kloof Street in Cape Town. She has a love for all things entrepreneurial related. She has a love for hospitality, technology, and organizational culture. Stay tuned for what she has to say. Hello and welcome to the Real Good podcast by Neighborgood. Kim, it is so lovely to have you here today. You're someone that I admire so much, and I've got to know in our time as converted Cape Townians. Welcome to our podcast. It's great to have you.
Thank you.
Thanks
for having me.
I want to go all the way back to the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey and where it all started, because you're someone who's done incredible things in your career across travel, across organizational culture. You've been a consultant at Airbnb. You built a brand that I absolutely love called Once, which in my mind was way before its time. And yeah, I'm just a huge fan, and to have you here is amazing. Why don't you take us back?
Thank you so much. And I think before I get started, likewise, tremendous respect for the Neighborgood brand and all that it stands for, and all the great work that yourself and Kim and the team are doing. I'm always standing in the bleachers, like waving support. So thank you for having me today. So I would say, like all good stories, mine starts once upon a time in Germany, where I was born, which not a lot of people know about.
I didn't know that.
I was born to a German mum and a South African dad who met while they were traveling. And my mum came to visit South Africa. She was crazy into flying and gliding, and she heard South Africa was the best place to go. My mom and dad met, fell in love, and had me not so long after. And the weird thing about growing up in Germany and then moving to South Africa is that I never quite felt like I belonged anywhere, right? And I was never South African enough and not quite German enough either. And so you can hear from my accent, one of the first things I learned to do was assimilate a lot. And I became obsessed with languages, which really helped me in my career as well. So fast forward a few years, I grew up traveling loads. I grew up in a very privileged white South African context in Cape Town. I had a premium education. I had access to holidays and camping trips. And so travel really became my passion. And having two doctors as parents, entrepreneurship did too. And my parents always said, when you're on a camping trip one day for 3 weeks, start a business that's making money when you're not there. And so that was really advice that I took to heart. And when I was 18, I left school, started university, but at the same time, I became a ski instructor. And I'll say that was the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. I hustled hard. I always had like 2 or 3 jobs my whole sort of varsity career. And I taught English. I taught skiing. I was really, let's say, entrepreneurial. And then after finishing varsity, which I failed, but then also passed in a whole nother degree that I didn't even know I could have, which is one of the lessons that I'll share is that failure is radical and not as shit as people say it is. I went and traveled to Argentina, and while I was there, I was deepening my love for skiing. I was training for a level 2 ski instructor and teaching English at night. And I was staying in a backpackers hostel for like 6 months. And the owner of this hostel was this like chilled New Zealand guy. And he just had such a kiff life. And I was like, I want this life. Like, I just want to like roll in, speak to people all day, socialize. And what I noticed about myself during that time was that I was more myself than I had ever felt before. And for the first time, I really felt like I belonged. And so that was really the origin for starting my first business, which I started when I was 23 here in Cape Town. It was called 33 South Boutique Backpackers. And it was a little 7-bedroom like student home in Observatory, which we converted into a backpackers. We were the first place in Cape Town to have white linen as a backpackers hostel. We were the first backpackers to have a safe per person, which I learned by losing all my clothes and all my valuables in Argentina when someone actually just robbed them out of a dorm bed. And that was also my first experience of building a brand. So 33 South was the first business I started, and it was really all about travel. And I think that sowed the seed for the next few years for me.
Can I ask something?
Of course.
Something on your LinkedIn CV that people may not know. What would it be?
So LinkedIn, I would say there are probably 3 things. Number 1, I'm a mother. So I have 2 kids. They are 7 and 10. A boy and a girl, and they live here with my husband and I in Cape Town. Number 2, I live in Tilburg part-time, Cape Town part-time, and so I get tremendous joy from being in nature and from hiking, and we have a little Airbnb on the farm, which I love. And then the final thing is probably that I was diagnosed with Lyme disease this year, along with my daughter, after feeling not great for quite a long time. I found out via that I had Lyme disease, and that it's taken me about 6 to 9 months to recover. Yeah.
You look healthy to me, but I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, Lyme is funny. About 6 months ago or 9 months ago, I was exhausted. I couldn't get out of bed, absolutely shattered. I would actually not know your name. I've programmed my phone so that I'd look at the brand on your t-shirt, type in Neighborgood on my phone, and I would have saved your name as Murray, and I'd be like, hey Murray, how's it going? Because I would literally like forget people's names.
Seriously.
So yeah.
Not because you're a workaholic, obviously.
No, I am a workaholic. But I've usually got an extraordinarily strong memory, and I'm proud to remember people's names.
Got you.
So brain fog is awful.
I'm obviously wishing you a recovery for yourself and your daughter, and wishing you guys all the best. Did you always know you were an entrepreneur, or was it something that you discovered?
Yeah, I think I've probably always known deep down. I was quite a weird kid. Like I didn't have many
Aren't
friends.
we all weird a little bit?
I don't know. I was just like absolutely not popular. I was very into like art and being creative, and I was just like the weird kid.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like I always did things my way. So I think the idea of being employable is just so foreign to me. I think I'm probably an entrepreneur because I'm just not really employable.
Really? Yeah, I hear you. You and I both. So part of the entrepreneurial journey for me is being in a team environment, and choosing co-founders is something that I've learned to be some of the most important decisions that you can ever make. I take my hat off to anyone who does it alone. And I know that you've had partners in your life. You've had partners at once and in different spaces. How do you go about choosing the right co-founder? What do you look for?
So I would say that my history with co-founders is fairly similar to my history with ex-boyfriends. Some were great, some were really bad. And my decision-making process in hindsight is probably similar, and I've definitely refined it. If I look back at the bad ones, I think the things that they have in common are that we have unshared values. These are kind of the core values of, for example, how are people showing up right now with this conflict in the Middle East? And what are they choosing to say or choosing not to say? Like, how considerate are they of the loss of human life, or, just fundamental value systems? Like, are you, I think, as you say, a good person? Do you have a gender bias? Do you have a race bias? Like, are you acting on those in a way that's inappropriate? Those are things that I've learned to ask upfront, be very bold with awkward questions upfront, just because that kind of stuff unravels and comes out very quickly after the partnership is formed. I think the other thing is I have come to know that I am a workaholic. In other words, I have a strong work ethic. I work quite quickly. And so relationships where people have a different work ethic in general don't work out for me.
Got you. I hear you.
Yeah. So that's my second thing. And then the third would be something around vulnerability, something around the ability to say, like, I'm not okay today. And I need some time off, or I'm really struggling with that thing you said yesterday, and it's affecting me because of 1, 2, 3, and what I request is X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
And I find that people who can't be vulnerable, I struggle with. I struggle with tremendously. I think things that did go well is where, I guess, quite, literally the inverse. We have shared values. We don't mind working hard. They're probably also a little bit fun, a little bit goofy, actually. And then there is an ability to be vulnerable and to show empathy.
Got you.
Yeah.
All super valuable. I would say the same if I had got asked the question.
Well, here's the thing, actually. I think one needs to think about divorce before the marriage, right? And someone gave me that advice about halfway through a very tricky partnership. And so things are amazing in the beginning. This person's dynamic and fun, but like, first of all, what's going to happen if the one person loses interest? What's going to happen if family takes priority and they want to spend some time away from that? What's going to happen if one of you dies? Like, all these things are so awkward to talk about, but actually there should be a list that you just go through, right? And then the other thing is, if I was going into business with you, I'd say, Mari, what are your success metrics? Okay, they might be financial, they might be about, what are your success metrics actually?
Fulfillment in all forms. I think it's a cross section of so many things.
Yeah.
And it's the accumulation of all of them measured equally. I think, for me, it's neither. Finance is super important, and it always needs to be there. A profitable, sustainable business. But joy and finding creative inspiration and work is just as important, if not more so, to be quite honest, because one flows from the other and into each other. The impact, I guess, that we're able to have, like the ability to create spaces that talk about, that actively like encourage a community. And it's such a cliched word, community, but when you see it in real time and the energy's there, you can observe how important it really is. I would say a few of those things are really important. I need to give it more thought and write it down.
Okay, so fulfillment and impact, cool. And fulfillment, financial, emotional, kind of as a creative fulfillment you mentioned as well. Okay, cool. What are your failure metrics? As in between a partner.
It's an interesting question. For a partner, I think I would definitely say not being able to have honest conversations with people is super important. I think like so failure metrics, not thinking about like my mind goes towards like some form of positive thing. Not wanting to work with someone because you don't feel like you gel. I think defensiveness is a quality that I find quite difficult to manage, because constructive debate is healthy, and being able to talk about difficult things. So I think that's, someone who's not egotistical, but who's sort of like, as a human, possibly puts himself first instead of the company's mission and the company's goals. It's I haven't thought about failure metrics. Those are something that I should definitely think about. They're super important. I haven't thought about the other side. I always think about like the good side of it, and then you sort of like experience some of the negative and you like brush it under the table because it feels uncomfortable. And then you sort of move on, but it is super important.
Totally. And those kind of courageous conversations up front, I've found to be extremely valuable. Because a lot of people walk out of them going, I don't want to be in business with you. And I'm like, thank God. We've saved ourselves lots of money and lots of time.
And heartache.
Awesome. And then the thing is, you've identified the boundaries and red flags up front. So if and when they ever come, you're like, hey, here's this thing we spoke about. And we have a solution for how we're going to deal with it.
I love that so much, man. We need to like write this down and like share it with the world. Or you need to write it down and share it with the world. I'm excited.
Well, we'll see. Maybe it's in the show notes.
So obviously hospitality and travel is something that inspires you, and you're someone that, is like, as an industry leader, COVID obviously had a massive impact in the world and continues to have a massive impact in the world through structural changes in how people consume space and how we think about travel. How did it affect you in your business? And personally and professionally, what did it do to you?
Right. So let me fill in the gap between when I was 23 and 2020. Okay. Because even though I look like I'm 25, it wasn't just a few years, okay? I'll give you that for free. So after starting 33 South, I went on to start another hotel or hospitality hybrid brand called Once in Cape Town, right? And it was called Once because it was the beginning of a story. And actually, I was one of the last people to join the team. I was sort of the operationally strong person. And the original team had wanted to call it Clock In, and I thought it was a terrible name. Like, Clock In sucks, guys. It's so shit. It makes me feel like I'm going to work.
Is that one of your failure metrics?
Well, it should have been a red flag that I didn't identify early enough in hindsight. But Once came out of a brainstorm with a group of travelers, and this guy from Canada was like, look, the magic that happens in these kind of places is that stories begin. You meet your wife, you meet your best friend, like you meet someone you're going to travel with. And it's always like, oh, Once in Cape Town, I hiked up Table Mountain, I met this amazing person, whatever. So we called it Once. And as the brand evolved, there was Once in Cape Town, Once in Joburg, and we later opened up there. We started Once Travel. We had huge expansion plans. We were negotiating a space in Zanzibar, Atlanta, Nairobi. It was just, the world was our oyster. And then actually just before COVID, even maybe a few days before the first COVID case ever came out in China, I had a change of heart, and I said, like, I've got to slow down. Like something just told me to slow down. And so I pressed pause on everything. I walked out of all kinds of toxic work relationships. I left a business deal that was where I did not see eye to eye with the developer. And I just focused on the core business. A few months later, of course, COVID hit. I happened to be in Berlin. There was a travel show called ITB, and I was speaking at the conference. And as I landed, the conference organizers called me and said the conference has been canceled. And I was like, well, I'm here now. Like a good South African, I'm going to exploit every second of my trip. I'm going to meet people in their hotels. I'm going to go to bars and meet influencers. I'm not lying down on my laurels. COVID doesn't affect me.
Yeah.
So, and then I also actually went on a little ski trip with a girlfriend. We had the best time living our best lives in Austria, which is just north of the Italian border. Drinking, shooters. Anyway, came back to South Africa. Long story short, Friday night, the 13th of March, get a phone call from my doctor. Kim, your COVID-19 test is positive.
No way.
And I was number 42 in South Africa.
That is unreal.
Yeah. So it was quite a shock. I knew no one who had COVID. I didn't feel sick yet. And I was like, this is ridiculous. My kids' school had to close down. It was a logistical nightmare.
All
Because of me. Our entire office had to close down. Like everyone I'd been in contact with had to close down. And I had 2 weeks to think, basically. And so I got on a call with some entrepreneurs from Italy in Lombardy through an organization called EO. I'm very active as a member in an entrepreneurs organization. And they said, it's chaos here. Like people are dying. It's a disaster. At the time, Lombardy was the epicenter of COVID. And someone said on the call, what would you have done 2 weeks ago if you knew this was coming? And they said 2 weeks ago, we would not have closed the hotels because they're all boarded up shut. Healthcare workers are sleeping in their cars. They're sleeping in the corridor. Like they're just not able to cope. And I was like, wow, okay. Like I have 300 beds. Maybe I could do something like this. Like maybe, one of the advantages of getting it so early on was that I'd already been able to negotiate a very, very friendly discount from our landlord in case COVID hit, which I don't think they thought would. And I was the first tenant to call and be like, look, I think this is going to be a problem for my business, which is a hotel. So that was the one thing I was able to do, was negotiate 2 weeks before the lockdown started, which was great. The second thing was I started thinking about this idea of staying open and accommodating healthcare workers. And a few weeks later, I was mopping the floor, the COVID grind of like just cleaning all day because there's nothing else to do.
Yeah.
Listening to Alanis Morissette rocking out. And I was like, hey, why don't I build a platform that connects empty hotels, empty Airbnbs, empty spaces for healthcare workers. So I called up an EO buddy in Joburg who has an incredible design agency called Nice Work. And I was like, how's it, Ross? I met you at an event once. I sat next to you. Listen, can you build me a website? I've got a interview with Refilwe Malloy on 7:02 on like Monday morning on Cape Talk and 7:02. And I want to launch this platform. This is the idea. And it's going to be called Ubuntu Beds. And he was like, yeah, that sounds great. My team's on it. So that's a Saturday. By Monday morning, we had a website. We had a brand. We had like a CI design. We had Canva templates. Like the whole thing was done. Over the weekend, it was insane. And then within a few days, we had like hundreds of hotels, hundreds of healthcare workers sign up. RMB called me the Monday that we launched. We'd conceptualized it 2 days before. Monday, they called me. They said, we heard your interview. We want to sponsor you. So they were the sort of key sponsor. And then Booking.com jumped in as a sponsor. Airbnb jumped in as a sponsor. Like millions of rands were donated by private individuals. F&B. It was an enormous effort. About 47 volunteers jumped in from lawyers, accountants, reservationists, and sort of really activated this concept. And in the end, we accommodated about 4,000 healthcare workers across the whole of South Africa.
That is insane.
Yeah. So
that is absolutely crazy.
It was cool.
How did you pull that off in like 3 days? That is, like, did you sleep for the weekend?
I mean, I would never have pulled it off without the incredible team. I relied heavily on some sensational people who really worked together through the whole of COVID to make it work. I was on our farm the one interview I had with the health ministry, a chicken walked through the back. Literally, it was wild. I mean, we were locked down on our farm.
That's so cool.
And I never met any of the people that I was working with, except for our team, whom we had to sort of slowly and eventually retrench about 62 people from once.
Yeah.
A lot of them we were able to reabsorb into Ubuntu Beds.
Yes.
You know, for that time.
Yeah.
And but no, it was all the incredible
human beings
people
behind it.
And that's the spirit of Ubuntu, right?
Right.
It's like, just, you know, I am because of who we are.
Yeah.
You know,
it's such a cool thing, man. I love it so much. Well, so you were speaking about Airbnb and the fact that they sponsored you as one of the sponsors for what you were doing at Ubuntu, and the Entrepreneurship Academy, which is super exciting. Tell us about what you're up to there.
Well, the Airbnb Entrepreneurship Academy is a wonderful initiative of Airbnb, and I'd encourage you to check out the website. If you just Google Airbnb Entrepreneurship Academy South Africa, you'll find it. And I think what is so heartwarming is to see how entrepreneurs throughout South Africa, particularly in townships, particularly in rural areas, are embracing the platform to showcase their homes. So, for example, and experiences as well, actually. So, for example, I think of some incredibly inspiring entrepreneurs like Zamani, who has an Airbnb in KZN, right on the border of the Shushlui National Park. And her home is called Experience Zulu Village. Experience the awesome Zulu Village. And you go there and you pay for your night's accommodation, but you learn how to make Zulu bread. Her grandmother teaches you how to weave a mat. You go and visit the local school. And so this accommodation experience is not just about sleeping, it's about actually storytelling and walking away having learned something new. It's about transforming the way you're thinking, right? Or I think about Buntu and Ayanda, who are Cape Town entrepreneurs from Khayelitsha. They have some incredible experiences like cycling around Khayelitsha and seeing all the businesses around Khayelitsha, or you can go and do a bar hopping experience in Khayelitsha, right? Like so unusual and so full of, just like grit and storytelling.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I think the Academy is an incredibly, it's a wonderful way to elevate South African entrepreneurs and really
within travel and experience.
Yeah, and I'd encourage you to share some of those experiences because they really are like world class.
Amazing.
You'll see by the ratings.
I'm so excited to continue the conversation. We're going to take a 2-minute break now.
Cool.
Thank you.